Good morning, Coolest Coast. It is time for Coffee with Kristen and Tina. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Coffee with Kristen and Tina. We're your hosts this morning. This is Kristen Odell. I'm Tina Prigge. So good to see you. Kristen, you are like fresh off the plane, beautifully sun-kissed and tanned. I have to say, I am amazed. You just got off a plane last night and we're still willing to show up and do this show this morning. You're amazing.
I cannot think of a better way to start my day than you're helping me ease back into real life.
So let's talk about the getaway that you had. I'm going to put up a picture that you sent.
Okay.
Viewers, do you have any idea, any thoughts on where this location might be?
Name that location. Although some of my friends are watching this morning, I think, and they probably know. So let's see if we have some friends with us, and let's see if they can identify it without being a cheater.
All
Tina,
right.
when you look at that picture, what
Mhm.
catches your eye first?
The palm trees and the way that they're kind of underlit.
Yeah.
And then I see, is that like seagrass or what is that in front?
Yeah, they're like bushes. They're almost like kind of like a big arborvitae, I would say. Not an arborvitae. What's the little bushes? They have little round leaves, and you trim them. You can trim them into shapes.
Like a jade plant or a bonsai?
No, not
No.
that Asian. I'll think of it. I'll think of it.
What surprised me looking at the photo is knowing where you are, that you can also see land on the other side. I wasn't expecting that.
Yep. Yes, we're in a little bay. That is true. Do you think this is sunrise or sunset?
Katie said, or Stacy said, "Oh my God, that photo is paradise." She is not wrong. I think that it's sunset.
You are right. It is sunset. And admittedly, we were swimming and wrapping up our day, and the sun was just starting to go down. And I was like, I have to get out of the pool and grab a picture. This is too beautiful.
Nice, nice. Okay, so we've given people an opportunity to weigh in. Tell us, where did you go?
We were on the glorious island of Puerto Rico. Doug and I were very blessed. So it was part work, part play. Doug is a member of the Precision Metal Forming Association, also known as PMA. And there we go. Thank you. They had an incredible 3-day conference out there. So we did attend sessions and hear a great keynote and network with a bunch of people that are in the metal forming industry, which was really cool because I have some clients in metal forming. And then obviously Doug works in the metal forming industry. So that was the reason that took us there. But I'm sure, Tina, if your husband said 1 year ago, hey, there's this great conference next year and it's going to be in Puerto Rico. Would you want to go with me? What would you say?
I would say a year ago, Puerto Rico wasn't a destination that was even on my mind. I like never thought of it really as a destination,
Mhm.
but I love travel and I love adventure. So I would have said, sure, let's
Yes,
go.
please, right?
Now, this at this time this year, you're the third person that I know that's gone to Puerto Rico within 6 months. And everyone has come back and everyone has loved it. And so now it's like on my bucket list of I want to go to Puerto Rico.
Right. It is beautiful. Very tropical. So this is past, if we think about, a lot of people go to the Dominican Republic on vacation. This is past the Dominican Republic. We had 2.5 hour flights to get there. So we went through Orlando, but it's a territory of the United States, which again, I'm learning history. You get to learn a lot. They say it was encountered by Christopher Columbus on his second voyage. They don't say founded because obviously there were native people living there on the island already. But there's incredible history there. It goes back to 1500.
So its history like predates US history.
Absolutely. 100% it does. And you can see it everywhere.
Tell us a little bit more about what you learned. I mean, because even this is like historical, it has this historic feel. It looks charming and cool.
Yeah, so this is Old San Juan. This is actually a fortified city, meaning it's protected all the way around. You have to take a bridge to get there. Um, there's incredible forts and historic buildings there. And, everywhere you go, it's cobblestone roads, just like this. color everywhere. You can see all the beautiful colors. One of the things we learned is that each one of these cobblestone bricks weighs like 10 pounds.
What?
Yeah, which I had no idea. Old San Juan is one of the only places in the whole world you can see blue cobblestone based on what the materials that they were made from, which is so cool. But so we got to do this as an excursion we signed up for. We had an opportunity to do some food tasting in Old San Juan and just walk around and experience the city. We definitely would love to go back and spend more time here. Like, I think we had about 2.5 hours. It wasn't enough.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about the food tasting.
Yeah, so this was actually a poolside lunch that I had at the resort. But this is like pulled chicken and fresh tomatoes and cilantro. And then what's on the bottom is actually double fried plantains.
Oh my God, that sounds amazing.
They take not ripe plantains and they deep fry them, and then they smash them in a press, and then they fry them again. And I'm trying to think of what it's called because the word is escaping me. It starts tostones is what they're called, tostones. And so it almost eats like a thick potato chip kind of, or almost like a potato wedge. But then, of course, there's nacho cheese on there. It was so delicious.
It looks so delicious. Did you bring some back? I'm joking, but man, I really would love to eat that.
I ate it all. And I'm trying, listen, this is one of the things, like, I'm going to try to make tostones for my family. I'm pretty sure you can get plantains at Festival. And so I think we're going to try to do that at home sometime for the kids.
Can you get back to us if that works and let us know?
Yes. Yes. So, and then
By the way, Connor said the infrastructure from 400 plus years ago is mind boggling. Very lucky, Kristin.
yeah, I mean, there isn't anything that old in the United States. So when you start walking around, you just have such a deep appreciation immediately for, like, you can feel how old it is. There's just something very historic feeling about it.
Yeah. Okay. Tell us more about food.
Okay, so this is our first stop on our walking tour. This is a Cuban sandwich, Cubano. And so obviously you might be thinking, really, they're serving Cubans in Puerto Rico, but they are. One of the main protein sources there is pork. So think wild hogs. But this had pulled pork on it and ham, Swiss cheese, pickles, mustard, and then this very thin bread, which is called water bread, which I'm also going to take a crack at, but so, so delicious.
That looks incredible. Yeah, you mentioned pork. I know that there's like a famed pork highway in Puerto Rico that I've heard about.
There
So
is. And we saw a lot of, barbecue or pork places throughout. Bacon is definitely readily available there if you're a meat eater.
it's interesting because I don't know if I would have thought that, right? Like I don't know if I would have identified like Puerto Rico and pork as going
Yeah.
together. But I
Yep. And we saw a couple of cows, but you have to think about, so this is super tropical, very, close to the equator. Animals have to be able to survive on that island. So, hogs or, wild boar, they tend to be much more durable than, you think about Pumbaa and the Lion King, right? Um, Much more durable or able to sustain life there versus something like a beef steer, which we're used to seeing.
right, right, really good point. Right, a hog doesn't require as much land to navigate on, as much food, all of that. Yeah.
They probably
Where
also readily repopulate themselves.
exactly, and grow pretty quickly. Interesting. Man, I love learning. Okay, so then what is this delicious thing?
So this is another plantain dish on the bottom. So they take part ripe plantain and part unripe plantain, and they kind of almost make it into like a mashed potato. So it was savory. Um, and the word will come to me about what this is called. And then they served it was like jerk chicken over the top.
Oh.
So that's chicken with just peppers and maybe a slightly spicy sauce, but sweet. So, so delicious. Doug and I like cleared our plate. It was so good.
It does look delicious. I feel like I can taste the flavor just from the photo.
Yes. And we were in this super like authentic little restaurant when we had this. So it was very nice to just be able to kind of really sample something that we know is on the menu there.
Well, and this next picture looks like it would be the perfect after bite to what you just showed us. Was this following?
Yes, this was after. So Tina, do you know what this dessert is?
It looks like flan.
It is flan.
Oh, I love flan.
Now, what was interesting about this is flan traditionally is an egg like custard dessert. This is part cheesecake, part custard. But it had incredible thin caramel sauce underneath it, and it did not disappoint.
So there's a little cheesecake in there? So like a little cream cheese?
Think custard with cheesecake kind of combined together to be, like the texture was maybe thicker than flan, but not as thick as cheesecake. So it was a combination of both. So custard with some cream cheese in it.
Wow, is that a Puerto Rican specialty, I wonder?
It is. We saw it a lot of places. We saw it on the menu a lot of places.
How cool. How cool. So you didn't just eat and you didn't just go to a conference, you also had a fun time playing. I love this photo so much. This looks like a postcard.
Yeah, so this is right by our resort. We were able to they have kayaks available for free. And we were like, when in Rome, right? And I just need to give a shout out to my hubby because he is not always real confident on the water. And I was like, let's go do this. And it was so much fun. And if you've ever been in an ocean kayak, you know that they're much more stable than like maybe a traditional kayak we might use around here. We had a wonderful time just kind of paddling up and down the shoreline and like check out this view. So we did not know the mountains were behind us until we paddled out and we were like, oh my gosh, what a beautiful perspective that we had been missing the whole time.
And I don't know if I knew in my mind's eye even what to imagine for what it looked like in Puerto Rico.
Allow me to offer you that perspective.
Yeah, and so looking at you guys in a kayak, was it wavy? Like, was it like being in Lake Michigan? Was it like being on the river?
It was like being on a river. So one of the interesting things, at least on the side of the island we were on, is there is a large reef. So if anybody has seen Moana, she's told not to go past the reef. And there's riptide out there, different things. And so we were encouraged, told to stay inside, so not go out where the waves are. So basically there's this huge space where the water is beautifully calm and there's no waves. But if you went out farther, you would get into it. And sometimes the waves are 8 or 10 feet tall.
You wouldn't want to take a kayak. I mean,
No,
no.
you,
Especially if Doug's not confident in the water. No.
I know. And one of the cool things was like, there was a time where we were sitting in the kayak, just kind of admiring the view and we weren't moving. So there's definitely currents happening under the water where we just kind of sat in this spot in the water and didn't move at all. And I'm like, this is a weird experience.
Could you see like fish or any marine life while you were out there?
Not necessarily there. We did see one. I don't know if you have a picture of it. We saw this kind of beautiful cross between a seagull and a pelican, kind of. Um, you might not have the picture. And then we heard that people saw whales. There's humpback whales there. We did not personally see one while we were there, but
Okay. So you mentioned Doug isn't terribly comfortable in the water, but in this picture, he looks super comfortable. This is more his jam, isn't it?
yes. So this was the other excursion we did. We took ATVs up into the rainforest and we got to kind of cruise around and just see like trees that are so tall and vines that look like, what you would see in Tarzan and beautiful flowers and wild chickens and just all kinds of stuff. So Tina, you know this, Doug has a motorcycle operating something, with an accelerator and that is definitely his jam. So we had so much fun just kind of cruising along. It was a pretty low key adventure. It wasn't real. I wouldn't say there wasn't like high speeds or cliffs or anything, but we really did just enjoying around and getting to see kind of that, again, a different perspective of being up in the mountains and up in the rainforest.
Yeah, a totally different perspective and feel for the land. So the big question I have is looking at the ATV itself, was it pristine when you guys started and all that mud is from the adventure you had?
They were not pristine when we started. This was kind of the one of the first stops along the way, but There was definitely mud and water along the way, but we thought maybe we were going to be like trashed with mud. And they told us to wear our swimming suits. So Doug and I both have a swimming suit on, and but it wasn't that bad. It was fun. I've got a couple little splashes of mud on my pink tennis shoes that I brought home with me.
Okay, so then there is another cool photo of you guys. Tell us what's happening here.
Okay, so our guide on the ATV tour grabbed some rocks from this river. We stopped at a river. We got to jump in this mountain river and kind of cool off halfway through. He grabbed these rocks, and while we were at a stop, offered to like paint these little local tattoos on us. And so he broke up the rock and added water and then used that to paint. And he shared with us that traditionally they would use this to protect themselves from the sun. They would use mud to protect themselves from like insects and different things. But so I have a sea turtle on mine. And then Doug has, you might not be able to see this, but he kind of has this wave motion. There's a brown section. And so that is just like the symbol for water. So once we got back to the resort, we were very hot and we're jumping in the ocean. We got our swimsuits on, but we had to get a picture of these before we did. So
Did it come off in the water? Is it like oh.
yeah, we had to capture it for all time.
Amy said, "Look at those muscles. Love vacation Odells."
Yeah. And I just need to this is a great moment to say, go vacation with your spouse or your partner. It's so good. Doug and I have gone, done kind of long weekends here and there, but we have not gone away for 6 days together since our honeymoon, which is obviously before kids.
Because
And
Grace is how old now?
Grace is 15.
Okay, 15. All right.
So, we've done the 3 day maybe or a 4 day, but we've never gone for like 6 days. And it was really special just to be able, again, we did some work stuff, but it's enough time where you really can connect and have fun and just really enjoy each other's company. And there's not many opportunities like that. And, it doesn't have to be a trip to Puerto Rico. It could be a camping, it could be a staycation, it could be anything, but just setting that time aside to just be with your partner or spouse is so important.
I agree 100%. There's something about just that 24/7 where you don't have external obligations, where you get to just explore and be and experience together. And like you said, wherever that may be,
Right.
and without any external demands either.
Right. Right. It was so good. It was fun to just kind of play and be adults again and yeah, not have any responsibility and
So was it hard to not think about the kids and not worry about the kids, or were you able to you knew they were in good hands, and if something happened, they'd find you?
well, my mom is amazing. I don't know if she's watching it. She probably is still sleeping because she's exhausted from taking care of our kids for all those days. Um,
Moms are the best, aren't they?
she is the best. She is the goat of moms. And yeah, she makes it so easy for us to go and the girls love her dearly. And so we're very, very lucky and blessed to have her. With that being said, I don't think we worried about the kids too much.
That's awesome. Because okay, this picture that you shared, you can just feel the love, right? Like there is just happiness, there is like relaxation. This photo just sums it up why a getaway is valuable.
I see content.
Mhm.
Just like, yeah. This is in the river, in the rainforest, up in the mountains, which was also freezing, by the way.
Ooh, what?
Yeah, freezing. Think mountain spring water. Like we went in the ocean at the resort, warm, very warm. Walk right in, throw yourself in. This water was ice cold.
See, you wouldn't necessarily expect that, right? You can learn so much by going to a new place.
Yeah, yeah. But you think about if you've ever been in mountains anywhere and you touch a brook or a spring it is usually really cold coming down.
Nice. So, and what's cool about having an adventure like this with your sweetheart is now you've got those memories that you'll keep looking back on and referencing. You might even have inside jokes or something, right? That you can just say, and it immediately takes you back to the good feels of this experience.
Absolutely, without a doubt. I mean, it's just the whole thing was so good, and we woke up in a just space of gratitude today. Like, wow, we're back in our beds, and we have to take kids to school today, and we have to do all those adult things today, but just really, really thankful for an opportunity to go and do that.
Yeah. And so Puerto Rico, you said it's a territory. So that means travel is relatively easy, right? Like you don't need a passport, you don't have to exchange currency.
None of that. None of that. Um, I think I'm trying to think back, we obviously used our driver's license for ID along the way. The only thing that I think we had to do extra was when we were leaving Puerto Rico to come home yesterday, they scanned all of our bags. We had to go through kind of a pre-check through the FDA because there's just certain things that they don't allow from Puerto Rico back into the US. But other than that, super easy. Like we would do it again. We would love to take the kids back to like old San Juan and have them just see that and experience it. There was so much we didn't get to see there.
Does it seem like a kid-friendly locale?
I would say yes. I think it was amazing. I think there was just so much to see and so much to do. And I mean, who
Nice.
doesn't love some sunshine, right? You guys know.
Ah, right. Okay. So you sent me this picture, Kristen, and you asked me if I had any book recommendations. And I was like, oh my God, like the sunshine, the pool, the ocean and mountains in the distance, the lounge chair with the beach towel. Like, this is the perfect epitome of self care, right?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
did you read any books?
Okay, so I had to write these down before the show because my list got a little long. I'm kind of proud of this in reflection. So on the way down, I was finishing a Kristin Hanna book called Fly Away, which is the second book in a series. The first one is Firefly Lane, which I think we might have talked about on the show.
We did.
So I finished that on the plane coming down. And then I was like, well, now what am I going to read? Right.
You were so excited for the trip, you finished your reading material before you even got there.
Right. So
So
then,
wait, would you recommend it? Was it a good Kristen Hanna book?
yes, they're both good. They're both very good. A little bit heavy. You read Firefly Lane, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So there is kind of a heaviness to it, but they're good. Like it's good. I clearly read both books. So,
Nice.
right.
Yeah.
And then I searched the bestseller list to see if there was anything on there that jumped out at me. And so then I read the book The Wedding People, which was kind of also an interesting book. Um
What's it about?
it's about a woman who is in a tough spot in her life, and she leaves her home and she goes to this vacation spot on the East Coast in a very old hotel with some intentions. I'm not going to ruin what they are. And the difference between her plans and what actually happens is pretty dramatically different. So maybe a little, it's fiction, maybe a little not real. But so that's called The Wedding People.
Is it like a rom-com? Is it
Hmm. It's a great question. I wouldn't say that. I would say kind of more feminine adventure.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Maybe yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. Let me think of a word. I'll maybe drop it in the comments later.
Okay, so it's called The Wedding People. Is she attending, like, just crashing different weddings at this place, or
That's not her plan when she starts. But
Okay,
she
okay.
does kind of end up doing that. So I'm not going to say anymore because I don't want to ruin it. But that was very good. So I finished that on vacation also, which is when I reached out to you. In between there, I had Mel Robbins' book, a paper copy of The Let Them Theory with me, which so we didn't intend on this, but I bought two copies, one for myself, and then I was going to just have one to give to somebody. So sometimes as you're reading a book, you feel inspired and you're like, hey, I think somebody so and so would benefit from this book. So I bought two copies, and Doug said to me before we left, can I take this other copy? And I was like, yeah, I bought it. I didn't have any intention of who to give it to. If you want to go ahead. So we kind of had this
That.
couple book study while we were on vacation. Totally unplanned, but I would highly recommend it. It was really fun.
It's awesome to talk about a book that you've read with somebody else that's read a book, right?
Yes. And it was fun because we were kind of reading it, in parallel with each other or very close. So Doug's a highlighter and a note taker in books. So he was like, oh my gosh, I just highlighted this. Like, I've got to read this out loud to you. This, smacked me. And then I would be like, ooh, wait till you get to this section. Here's, and at the end of the day over dinner, then we'd be like, okay, what's one thing from that book today you're going to go and do different? And, just, again, we didn't plan it. That's not what we set out to do, but it was really fun doing that. So we're each about halfway through that book. So we are going to keep doing that.
Ah, what a serendipitous, occurrence, right?
Like, we would do this purposely now. So highly recommend. Even if you're traveling with girlfriends or, going to, like, I think it would be kind of a fun thing to do, especially if it's a pretty easy read, I would say, unless you're doing some really deep reflection. So that
Well,
was
and it doesn't even have to be that book specifically. You could
no,
choose any book that the 2 of you are interested in and just
right.
have discussion about it.
Absolutely. And then by your recommendation, I started the book, The Measure, on my way home. So I got into that yesterday and it's interesting.
So, what do you think? I happened upon this book. I didn't know anything about it, but I was intrigued by the blurb. And when I read like the first chapter or 2 and realized what the basic scenario was that was happening, it kind of blew my mind. It's a totally fresh take, right?
Yes.
And it really opens this like Pandora's box of what if, what
Right.
would you do, and the impact it has on society.
So I'll set this up a little bit and feel free to jump in because I know you've read this. So basically, the premise of this book is everybody wakes up in the morning, people who are 22 years or older, and there's a wooden box outside their door, and
With
that
their name on it.
they are like custom inscripted, like their name on it. Everybody in the whole entire world, whether you're living in a van or in a tent or wherever, everybody gets these boxes, and it basically determines how long you're going to live. And
Yeah.
you have to decide, first of all, if you're going to open it or not, and what happens after that.
There's an inscription on the box and it says, "Contained within is the measure of your life." And so inside is a little bit of string, but
Mhm.
no 2 strings are necessarily identical.
Correct. And so you have to imagine, like, I had a bit of this context from you saying, like, well, here's kind of what it's about. But imagine waking up and there's like 2 boxes outside your front door, one for you and your spouse, and you have no idea what they are, right? So, just like modern day social media and the news outlets start publishing it, but yeah, you have some decisions to make. And then, even if you do open them, then you have to deal with, like, well, what comes next? So I'm maybe a quarter of the way, maybe a third of the way into this book, and I have no idea where it's going to go, and I'm so intrigued.
Yeah, it was so interesting. I was intrigued as well, and it just seems like it seems like a story that would be really good to dissect afterwards with conversation. Like, it would be a great book club book.
Yeah, and it's just, I think, very different than anything. So it's kind of like almost part sci-fi a little bit because there's no explanation for like why or how this happens, and yeah, it'll be really interesting to see where it goes.
But that's the only sci-fi aspect of it. Otherwise, it's totally set in this world as we know it.
Yeah, it's very modern times.
Hey, Mary said that she read a book called Stolen Innocence about a girl that escaped from a polygamist sect. Oh my God. It was so good, but I had to pause a few times. It was her story, and I was impressed how brave she was to open up about her experience. So it sounds, Mary, like it's based on a true story.
Ooh,
Wow.
interesting. I love that. Mary, thank you for sharing a title. I know I reached out to some of my girlfriends and I'm like, what are you all reading right now? I need some books. So, Tina, I was so thankful. I know you are such a little bookie. I knew you'd have a title for me. You've never everything you've ever, suggested to me has been amazing. And I knew you'd come through for me. So,
Oh, that makes me so happy. Awesome. Hey, before we have to go, I just know that, this is 5 years since COVID, right? Are there any COVID protocols that are still in practice when you travel, like to Puerto Rico?
no, I didn't. I mean, it's very hard, very almost a weird thing to sit here and think, well, first of all, Tina, you and I next month will have had this show 5 years.
You rock.
alive today.
Woo!
So it's just wild to think about that. It's kind of wild to think about what we did and what we went through and just how different life was. I didn't see a lot of it. We saw a few people traveling with masks. Obviously, for some people, that's still a choice. For some people with immune stuff, that's a necessity. So I would say more rare. Um, a couple of places we saw things like, practice social distancing or something like that. But I would say for the most part, no.
Okay, so
Yeah,
there's no testing anymore when you're gonna get on a
no,
plane or anything.
none
Okay,
of that. None of that.
good to know.
Um, but yeah, it's kind of wild. It almost doesn't feel real.
Sometimes I forget that we lived through that. I can't believe it. So
Right.
it's good that we remind ourselves too. So, we don't wanna forget what that was like.
Right. Right. Well, and just, everything we learned about it. And I think it was a pretty gritty time for a lot of us. So even though, it was difficult, I think about homeschooling my kids then. And I'm like, what in the world was I thinking? Right. But when I think back on it, I just think about it was like a whole nother level of grittiness that I like exercise that I didn't have. I didn't have the tools before that. And so, sometimes as much as it was frustrating or difficult or challenging or hard or whatever, a lot of people grieve family members that pass. There are just all these things going on. But, um, I've got to reflect back and think about, who I am today is based on the experiences then, and who you are today is based on those experiences then. And we wouldn't have coffee with Kristin and Tina if it wasn't for that. So,
That's right, right, and most importantly, we all adapted. We all figured it out in some way, and here we are today. So we got this. We got this. Well, Kristen, thank you for coming back right off the flight and sharing your adventure with us. I feel like we can still get the waft of coconuts from you. It's awesome.
oh man, there is something about palm trees that just makes everything better.
Thanks everyone for joining us today. You've been watching Coffee with Kristen and Tina. We're your hosts, Kristen Odell. I'm Tina Prigge. We'll see you next time.
Bye.